People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What if the reason you wake up every morning feeling empty isn't because you're ungrateful, but because you're unconsciously living someone else's script? Carl Jung discovered why so many successful people feel miserable. We've been trained to pursue goals that were never truly ours. Today, you'll learn whose life you're actually living and how to reclaim your own. Think about your biggest achievements. That promotion, that house you bought. In the moment you got them, did you feel the satisfaction you expected? Or was there hollow emptiness where joy should have been? Let me tell you about James, a lawyer who had everything society told him to want. 6-figure salary, prestigious firm, expensive car. Yet every Sunday night, he'd sit feeling like he was suffocating. He couldn't understand why success felt like failure. Jung realized most people never ask, are these actually my desires, or have I inherited them? He called this the collective unconscious. Expectations and dreams society implants in us before we're old enough to choose. Jung identified the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society. The problem isn't having personas. It's mistaking the mask for our true face. We become so good at being what others expect that we forget who we actually are. From childhood, you were handed a script. Go to school, get good grades, stable job, buy a house, get married, have kids, retire. This script might not be yours. When you follow someone else's blueprint for happiness, you end up with someone else's life. This explains why achieving society's definition of success leads to what Jung called unlived life depression. You get the promotion and feel empty. You buy the house and feel trapped. The achievements aren't wrong. They weren't chosen by your authentic self. Jung believed this creates a split in the psyche. Your conscious mind pursues socially approved goals, while your unconscious rebels through anxiety, depression, or that persistent feeling something is deeply wrong. The midlife crisis isn't about aging. It's the unconscious finally screaming loud enough to be heard. After decades of living someone else's script, the authentic self stages a rebellion. This isn't pathology. It's your psyche trying to save you. James's breaking point came during a partners' meeting. As colleagues celebrated another win, he felt completely disconnected. That night, he asked a question he'd never dared ask. If no one was watching, what would I actually want to do? Jung called the journey back to your authentic self individuation. It's differentiating yourself from collective expectations and discovering who you are beneath the roles and identities others have assigned you. How do you know if you're living someone else's life? You feel chronically unfulfilled despite success. You constantly seek approval from others. You make decisions based on what you should do rather than what feels right. You're performing rather than living. Most people stay trapped in inherited scripts because of fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of financial insecurity, fear of not being enough without external validation. But Jung understood this fear is actually fear of your own power. Every path not taken, every authentic desire suppressed, becomes what Jung called shadow material. This unlived life doesn't disappear. It festers in the unconscious, creating resentment and a persistent sense that you're betraying yourself. Reclaiming your life begins with conscious awareness. You must become aware of which thoughts and goals are actually yours versus which ones you've unconsciously absorbed from family, society, or culture. Start questioning every major decision. Did you choose your career because you love it or because it impressed others? Did you choose your lifestyle because it fulfills you or because it looks successful? This isn't judgment, it's clarity. As you strip away inherited expectations, your authentic self begins to emerge. You discover forgotten desires, suppressed talents, dismissed dreams. This isn't always comfortable. Authenticity requires courage. James took a sabbatical to travel and think. Away from his usual environment, he remembered his childhood love of photography. He realized he'd become a lawyer to please his father, not because he loved law. He began transitioning toward documentary photography. When you start living authentically, you'll face resistance from others and yourself. People who knew you in your old role might not understand your changes. Your conditioning will try to pull you back to safety. Here's how to begin. First, spend time alone without distractions. Listen to thoughts that arise when you're not performing. Second, pay attention to what energizes versus drains you. Third, notice when you're acting from should versus want. Conduct a values audit. List everything you think you value, then honestly assess whether these values are truly yours or inherited. Which ones light you up? Which ones feel heavy or obligatory? You don't need to quit your job tomorrow. Start with small acts of rebellion. Say no to something you don't want. Pursue a joy-bringing hobby. Express opinions that are truly yours. The psychological reason you hate your life isn't because you're ungrateful. It's because you're living from your persona instead of your true self. Your misery is your psyche saying, "This isn't who you really are." 2 years later, James makes less money but wakes up excited about his work. His photography has meaning. His legal career never had. Not everyone understood his choice, but for the first time in years, he feels alive. You have a choice right now. Continue living the script others wrote for you, or begin the courageous work of discovering your own story. The life you're meant to live is waiting for you to claim it. What's one area where you suspect you're living someone else's script? Share in the comments. Your honesty might give someone permission to question their own inherited patterns. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." But first, you must discover who that is beneath all the expectations and inherited scripts. That discovery is the beginning of a life worth living.